There is a moment that comes after the motivation. And I feel it's been shared. It's not really been talked about enough, I guess, for me in a useful way. And when an event ends or a challenge ends or daily streaks ends and the real life steps back in. And then in that moment, it's either that's where most people fall into, they either kind of like integrate what they've learned or they quietly step back into their old identity. So I want us to talk about what actually matters after a like a motivational, I was gonna say motivational event, or just when whatever it is that we're doing, when that motivation fades and what we've been the hype, the whole, even if it's not a hypey thing, but when that goes, what's been revealed, like for me, how I've been able to manage in the past and how things were and how I'm now able to like utilize it better, and want to share like five or so ideas that I'm like thinking of, because I've just come off from a very huge event that got me like really into like pumped and activated and really reflective and let's go, let's do this. And in the past, for me, especially like in this season of me, in this documentation season, where, that motivation of like, I had this thing for me of where I was documenting something and I was following an event and the motivation, the hype of that. And then now that has ended, it just like lined for me in the past, right? When I've gone to events and stuff like that, I would like, come back all excited and I'll be like, and come home, especially, if it's something that I've just solo done and I'll come back, it's like, oh, this and that. And everyone's like, what? Like they're not on the same path. The energy now is like coming from a space and people who are in that same mindset, in that same feeling, in that, like we are like, let's go and facing like real life. We need to clock in. We need to do go back into the real world, go and get those coins. Uh, some humans need to be fed. Some people need to be served. All these things happening. And you find that with the hypeness of that, for me, it was just kind of like, ooh, okay. I guess I need to get back into the system, especially when I go away to the event and then okay, back in, let's go, let's go, let's go. And before you know, it's like all the hype, the energy and everything just kind of like, and it is forgotten. And then it's like, oh, here we come again, let's do it. So I've been like, that has been my way of, all right, this is what, this is no use in that sense. But when I was in the room, when I was in the space, got it. Now life is life in, and I'm forgetting it. And over time, things that I've used to help, especially like having this, I've had this thing going and been motivated to be like present and really into it. And then now that has ended, and I'm like, okay, what do we talk about now? What's gonna show up for me? And I always like, for me now, when I'm going into an event, I really go with a different lens, a different way of thinking of how I want things to happen, how I want things to show up now. Because if I don't have a reason, okay, what's this event? What am I getting out of it? I always like want a why. Do I just want to, once you know, okay, this event is about this, and this is what I want to learn, or this is what I want to be reminded, or this is what I want to take away from that. Having that I can always touch base on, that can always use moving forward in, okay, this is what I am like revisiting the why as time goes on. Because if not, once that's done, I am forgetting it. I'm not the activation and the desire and the how things are shifts because you're in that space. You are thinking about all you're thinking about is whatever it is that learning is, whatever it is that thing is doing for you. You're 100% in the room, on there, and then now the other demands, the other things wanting attention, the other things that are like in your space, that kind of like wanting to know. So that's just going to affect how you then move on because the attention is going to be divided. So having a reminder for me of, okay, what was that event about? And then touch basing on that why ever so often and recognizing what are those takeaways, what are those things that I've noted. Because I find like there have been seasons where I would just take and take and take and take and take notes. And I don't even look at it until, oh yeah, that event again is coming up around, or like I'm just going through my notes and then it's like, oh look, what's the deal? Like something's yeah. That's that gets me as well. And something else as well that for me, how I help to just let the motivation keep going is when I'm in the space in whatever it is that the event that I'm in. I'm always thinking, what am I implementing? What are the things I'm going to use? What are the three things, the two, even if it's the one thing that I'm going to start doing that I can start using in my life and in my thing? What are those actionable things that I can start trying out and doing? That helps to keep that desire on board. Once I know, okay, now I have like the idea of what the event is, what the premise of like what my core learning and the things I'm using, having that as a reminder has really started like helped in taking it forward. Because once you're hyped up and that hypeness goes, then we're so easy to fall back into the old way or into um how things were. So what I tend to do is now how help myself is I know the why of the thing that I've learned, or I decide or have an idea before I go, and then I have my what it is that I'm taking away from the event, what is it that I'm learning, or what do I want to use. Now is the time to have a plan. Planning out, structured plan in a way of like, okay, how am I using this? How is this learning going to be implemented in my life? Because once we can figure it out in a real life situation, or this is how I do it anyway. Like, how can I then use this in my real life? How can I then start breaking this down? What's that? Because it would then help the transformation into that mundane. Because you remember, like, I was gonna say remember, in case it's the first our first meeting. Hi, I'm Nene. I'm a speaker trainer coach. And yeah. And then now I've lost my train of thought. Let's get back into it. What was I going to remind you? So I was going to remind you of an event that I just went to. I went to the Time to Rise event, and I was going to make reference to that one because now what was I making reference to? Blankety blank. But when we're doing structure, see, this is the difference now. Now we're free flowing. We're going back into like how is things showing up. And before I was like always structured and like let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. And it's like anyway, we move on. We keep talking. We keep expressing ourselves. Because honestly, this one is such a huge one, especially kind of like you go into this space, you learn and you just want to keep staying in there, but you have to go back into real life. So when I've learned something, I try to make it a plan of how am I going to use this. And some of the things that will be okay, this thing here, for the next 10 days, I'm going to start implementing this. I'm going to start working on this and see what that gets to look like. Because remember, now I'm using remember again. But anyway, in case you don't know, when you have that, like when we know, okay, this is what we've learned. It's not always a one and done. For it to become like part of who we are, we have to integrate it into ourselves. So that means we're going to have daily reps into it. We have to keep doing it or have a way to make it sustainable, like having that consistency in the conditioning. Because once we learn something, we need to condition it to become who part of who we are. Especially if it's a belief thing or whatever that we're working on reintegrating. Having a plan of, okay, for the next 10 days, for the next 30 days, I'm working on this to for it to now be my new norm. This is now going to be part of like what I get to do, how I get to show up, and what are the things that I'm doing to support, integrate that which I want. So yeah, so that's kind of like another way that I use to kind of like get into that space. And for me, this is really key. Um, it's staying connected with other people who are gone through the same thing. When I have done something and come back, I forget it. So sometimes I'll go to an event with people or I meet people there and just body up. And it's a case of like, oh, let's touch base again, say in a week's time, or like let's just if it's something that we're having to like physically or mentally integrate, let's do a group together and then we're doing this daily thing and reminding and saying, okay, I've done mine, da 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 da. So yeah, staying connected with people, other people from the event, other people who are on the same journey or who were like they got activated as well. Because when I come back, or I go back into spaces that people do not know what was said, they'll be like, and then you come up with all this like inspiration and desire and like let's go and all these things going and people are like, ooh, okay, this is extra. I've learned the hard way because I'll come in like, okay, this is what I learned, this is what I learned. I did this, I did that, I did that. Like I was just word vomiting, and especially like to my husband and stuff, and I just say, oh, this and that, and it's like, okay, too much. And it's like, huh, really? When they don't understand the concept of what you've learned and all those things, then it becomes kind of like, and it's not like in a, I was gonna say like a demeaning way or whatever. No, it's just they don't understanding or they how it was structured, how it was explained. It's not in the same. We've in this emotional high and being activated, and they've not been. So having to relate to other people who understand where you're coming from, other people who know what to expect or the languages and things, I find like it just reinforces the learning, sharing ideas and people because like like when something happens and they're asking for weaknesses and this person is standing on this side, oh, what did you see? This is all they see. Okay, let's just use for a car accident, say like in a roundabout, and there are people in different points. If you ask this person, they saw it from this point of view, this person saw it from that point of view, that person, and then when you come together and you'd be like, oh yeah, oh wow, yeah, I see where you're. And then we're coming up with our own worldviews, our own understandings, like what's gone on for us and life and everything. And then you share those concepts and those things to just kind of like reinforce the learning, to integrate it, to get connected. I just feel having that regular touch point, having that regular setting aside, if it's weekly or whatever, we've agreed connecting with people and just reinforcing that is key. And one of the things that I feel like for me in the past, I have gone to an event and the next day I would have a job very early in the morning, like so early, like my brain overload, brain stimulated, brain activated, everything. And the next day, I'm straight back into work, into do a booking and this rara. And now depending on the intensity of the thing or whatever, I would take a day out. Or like I would really rest up just to recover or have that time to debunk and like just what showed up, like what am I learning, depending on what the event is or what the challenge was or whatever that is. Having that moment is so vital for me to calibrate, to soft land into back into mundane, back into how things are, how the flow. So it's self-care is very important, whatever that is, taking that time to just physically, mentally, like with everything. Because when I have rushed in, and back then I did it out of scarcity, out of like, oh, whatever that situation is. But now I always like schedule time just to is that a good phrase to decompose? Decompress myself. Yeah, from that. So I can then use that time to either plan out what I'm going to do or just kind of like just rest if case it was a traveling thing, in case like all those things, so I can really absorb and really enjoy the feeling, the understanding of yeah, what that gets to look like for me. And another thing that I do that also helps me is after coming from this high, like a motivational thing and or event or whatever that is, it's actually just sitting in it. And a lot of like places, especially if it's like a personal development thing or mind like a whatever, they would help normally towards the end that tends to happen. Not always. But it's a case of just sitting and visualizing the success of what I've just learned moving forward. Like what does that get to be like? How how do I see myself if and when I've reinforced all these learnings, when I've now started doing this and seeing the picture of me after I've even gotten this, what that gets to look like also helps with that motivation. It also helps moving forward with like doing those reps of the things that I get to do to support to help with the flow of things. And it's understanding that whatever learning I'm learning, seeing myself as already doing the thing, already achieved the stuff that I'm doing. Because we have to embody it before we even be it. You know, it's like, okay, this is who I am doing a thing. Um, and yeah, and in that way, the motivation doesn't just fading out, kind of like so. And the other thing I tend to do as well is, which I've done publicly or in an event I attended. I was gonna say, is like voice noting my learnings, like my takeaway and the desires and everything. So like in a way documenting what my take on the thing is, on how I what I'm learned from it. And from that documentation is what I then use when I'm speaking with other peers and connecting with other people from the stuff. Is like, oh yeah, this is what I've learned, and this is what I'm like using, and this is how things are like are flowing. So having to just like okay, this event, this is why I did a thing, this is what I'm intending to do and like use and blah blah blah. That yeah, it helps, and then from time to time I can just touch back base and like again just listen to that event. Okay, yeah, and and for me, I get reactivated in some cases. Like I feel the feeling, the emotions, or the ahas that I got in those places and the thing, and like it brings me back. I'm like, okay, okay, like it's like a juice box. Let's go more and more, and that also helps me to keep the momentum going so that it's not just faded. These are kind of like the things that I use that I do to support me in keeping the momentum going and to keeping that going, obviously. And for me as well, it's all about the celebration and the like, oh yes, I'm doing the thing. That helps because if we if it's not in our focus, if we do not schedule, put the stuff in there, do the thing, within weeks, within whatever, it would fade away. We'll forget about it. We would not. And that's why I always give myself the grace that, because when you go to an event, there's so many things you can pull out, you can learn. But I always go for like, what is that one thing that if I do this, because most of these events, they happen so often, to the next one, then I know, yes, it's a done deal. Kudos. I did it. So it's always like the one thing so that if that event happens again and I show up, this is what I wanted to be able to. It doesn't have to be public or any or share whatever. But even to me, I like for the next milestone when this event happens again, I want to be able to do whatever that is, and that helps with like with the thing. And I have done that in the past, and I've gone to the events like, ooh, I said, ooh. So what I do now is I would put after the event, I'll put touch points in months or whatever, getting close. Like, then how are we doing? What's going on? Are we still in it? You said you did to kind of like help. So the one event I did that for was very successful, and I intend to do that current of moving forward in like anything that I do because sometimes like even though you have the best plan and like something get activated or whatever, having those reminders to the if you're gonna go to the event again or if anything like that, like oh yeah, and then you go back and like okay, okay, I get to do this. Okay, let's get this remembering, let's get practice reinforced and yeah, these are the ways that I have used to help keep that momentum going, the motivation when the dips are coming, because it's inevitable. You come from this high vibe thing, if it's that, or this structured learning to now back into life, and it just the dips is a natural thing. So, what are ways that you have used to keep that momentum going for self to like make sure that you're reinforcing the learning of the things you're doing, and yeah, share in the comment section, and yeah, and please don't forget to subscribe. Actually, don't forget to like this video if you got some gems or some ideas or aha. Let me know in the comment section what you do or what's landed. And yeah, stay close if you're in this becoming series as we documenting this thing as we go along. How what YouTube is showing for me and all this stuff. But yeah, Nene here. Remember that your voice matters and it's your time to use it. Bye for now.